The air in the classroom was thick with tension that day, though nobody knew why at first. The students sat in their desks, slouched, restless, and distracted as high schoolers often are, when the moment that would change everything happened in the blink of an eye. A boy larger than most of his classmates, filled with arrogance and reckless bravado, rose from his seat. He had been the school's feared bully for years, untouchable, feared and unchecked. That afternoon his eyes carried a darkness, and when he towered over the teacher with clenched fists, no one expected what came next. In a moment of shocking aggression, he reached forward, his hand wrapping tightly around the teacher's throat. Gasps filled the room, but the teacher's expression did not falter. Her body did not flinch. What no one in that classroom knew, not the bully, not the students, not even the administrators, was that this woman, quiet and reserved, had once endured the brutal crucible of the U.S. Navy SEALs secret training program. A path she had walked before life led her to the classroom, and in that instant, when danger was at her throat, something ancient, disciplined, and utterly unshakable awakened within her. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of hidden strength, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Legends Off History. Your support allows stories like this one to reach more hearts across the world. Her name was Emily Carter, though to her students she was just Ms. Carter, the history teacher who never raised her voice and who always carried herself with an almost serene composure. What most failed to notice was the way she stood, back straight, shoulders squared, movements precise like someone who had trained her body to perfection and her mind to unshakable calm. She had left behind a past that she rarely spoke about, one filled with grueling trials, battles in silence, and sacrifices that few would ever understand. After years of serving in ways her students could not even imagine, she had chosen the life of teaching, believing, perhaps foolishly, that within classrooms and young hearts, the true battles of the world could still be won. But there are moments life tests us in ways we never seek. The bully, Mark Daniels, was not just any troublemaker. He came from a family of influence, a boy who had learned that intimidation was a currency he could spend without consequence. He had shoved smaller classmates into lockers, sneered at teachers, and carried himself like someone invincible. For months he had tested Ms. Carter's patience with mocking remarks and disruptions, but she had always answered him with calm composure. To him it looked like weakness. To her it was discipline. That day, though, he pushed too far. Something had sparked his anger, perhaps a grade, perhaps embarrassment in front of friends. But when he lunged forward, gripping her throat with his hand, the entire class froze in horrified disbelief. Emily's vision tightened as his hand pressed, but her mind did not panic. Years of training ignited within her like muscle memory long asleep. With startling swiftness, she moved. Her arm shifted, her balance changed, and in one seamless motion she broke free from his grip. Before Mark could even register what happened, he found himself twisted to the ground, his wrist pinned, his breath stolen by the sudden and merciless precision of her technique. The classroom was silent except for the sound of his gasps. The bully, once feared, now lay immobilized by a woman he thought powerless. What stunned the students more than the move itself was the expression on Ms. Carter's face. She was calm, not angry, not triumphant, but calm. She held him with the restraint of someone who had mastered the art of control. She released him only when she was sure he would not rise again. For the first time, Mark's eyes reflected not arrogance but fear. Fear not just of her strength, but of what she represented. Rumors spread quickly after that day. Some students whispered she had been in the military. Others guessed she had some kind of martial arts training. And still others thought she had powers no one could name. The truth, of course, was more complex than any rumor. Emily had once been a candidate for the Navy SEALs, one of the most grueling paths any soldier could walk. Though women were never formally recognized in the role during her time, she had gone through private specialized programs, serving in ways few would ever know, her missions hidden in shadows. She had learned to push her body beyond exhaustion, to endure pain beyond comprehension, to remain calm when chaos reigned. She had lost friends, carried scars that never faded, and made sacrifices that words could never capture. And after all of that, she had chosen a classroom because she believed the greatest battles were not fought with guns or fists, but with knowledge, compassion, and the chance to guide lost young souls away from destruction. Mark Daniels was such a soul. Though she had every reason to report him, to destroy his future with the truth of what he did, she saw more than his violence. She saw a boy raised without discipline, without compassion, without guidance, and instead of revenge, she chose something different. She chose to confront him with truth, to challenge him not with punishment alone, but with the expectation that he could be more. For weeks he avoided her gaze, embarrassed by the humiliation, but slowly the cracks in his arrogance began to show. When she spoke to him, not as an enemy but as a mentor, something shifted. It was not easy. He lashed out again at others, skipped classes, and tried to reclaim his image of power. But Miss Carter never wavered. She spoke to him not of what he was, but of what he could be. She reminded him that strength was not measured by how many you could hurt, but by how many you could protect. And though he resisted, the words carved their way into his mind like water into stone. Years passed. The story of that day became legend in the school, though Miss Carter herself never spoke of it. Students moved on, lives unfolded, and most forgot. But Mark did not. Something about that moment, being pinned to the floor by someone he underestimated, had burned itself into his memory. It haunted him at first, then challenged him, and finally, it changed him. When he left school, his path could have been destruction. But instead, he made a choice. Inspired, though he never admitted it, by the woman who had humbled him, he enlisted. His early years in the military were difficult. Arrogance had to be stripped away, discipline had to be built, humility had to be learned. Yet through it all he carried the memory of the calm in her eyes the day she disarmed him. That memory reminded him what real strength looked like. And slowly Mark Daniels grew into a soldier not of pride but of purpose. One day, years later, Emily received a letter. It was from Mark. He confessed what she had meant to him, how her strength had changed the course of his life, how her refusal to destroy him had instead saved him. He told her he had chosen a path of service, one that honored what she had taught him. And in that moment, as she read his words, Emily knew that her choice to lay down the weapons of war and take up the quiet armor of teaching had not been in vain. Sometimes the greatest victories are not on the battlefield, but in the lives we touch without the world ever knowing. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Legends Off History. Your support helps us continue to tell stories of courage, kindness, and the hidden strength in ordinary people. Special request to comment. Share in the comments what this story made you feel, and whether you believe one act of discipline and compassion can truly change a life forever.